Hello, everybody, and welcome to DES 103. This is week 2, and this is our beginning vector illustration class. I just wanted to welcome everyone who came to class today and welcome those of you who are joining me from home via the recording. So we have quite a few things to go over today. Have any of you looked at the assignment 2? Have you taken a peek? It's a little intense. We do have quite a lot of work to do, but I'm hoping that we can work through it, and I'm going to demo exactly how to do it. We're going to talk about how to use the pen tool, so I'm glad that you came. A small peek. Okay, so first thing I wanted to mention is there is a file, and I will go in there so that you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We're going to go into the class. So this is our assignment 2. Now, check out the announcements. I just posted the announcement here. Under assignment 2, which I will go to, you'll notice that there's a file to download. It's an Illustrator template with 3 artboards, and each one will have instructions for you to do, some assignments that you need to complete. So under the assignment 2, click on that. Hopefully internet can go quick. There we go. And we'll just scroll all the way down. Okay, it says download this file. The problem with this file that I've been having is that Artboard 2 is not displaying the pen tool exercises. So we're not going to use this file until I can get it fixed. I emailed the admin who works on the class, so hopefully we can get the new file uploaded. But what you can do is under the announcements, which I just posted, I updated the file. So the file that I'm posted here should work. So a week 2 assignment 2 download Illustrator file. So this is what you're going to look for. So I'd like everyone to go to the announcements, and I want you to download this file. We're going to be working in it in class. So I highly recommend that you download this to your computer. So go ahead and grab this, and I want you to open it and tell me if all the artboards are displaying. On Artboard 2, I'll show you what it will look like. It will have a bunch of pen tool exercises, some instructions in blueprint. If you don't see that, please let me know. But this should be an updated file. All right, so everyone go there. Give me a little smiley face when you've done that, just so I can know that we are good to move forward. But under the announcements is where you'll find the current assignment 2 file to download if you're having trouble seeing it from the assignment 2 link. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop that share, and then I'm going to show you Illustrator real quick. Give me a minute. I'll be toggling back and forth in a little bit. So your screen should look like this. So we've got 3 artboards. The first one has some pencil tool exercises. The second one has pen tool exercises. And then you'll see a template of a butterfly, which we're going to use the pen tool and the pencil tool in combination here. So let me know if all 3 of your artboards are displaying well on that link that was just posted under the announcement. So if someone can just let me know if that is displaying correctly, that would be wonderful. Does anyone see that link? And I'm going to go ahead and share the video. I know we're supposed to say hello. I've got my exercise bike and my trampoline in the back. So the kids are getting exercise, and so am I. It's been a rainy week, so we're all about getting our wiggles out. But we just wanted to welcome you to class and tell you guys that I'm happy that you're here. We're going to learn we're learning the dreaded pen tool. Have any of you had experience with the pen tool before? I kind of like to get a feel. How comfortable do you feel with this tool? I get quite a mix. Some students say that they're a little overwhelmed with it. It's intimidating. Other students feel very comfortable with it. So I just want to make sure. And I'll need some participation from you guys just so that I know you can hear me. Because again, I'm not seeing my mic displaying. So I want to make sure that I'm coming in loud and clear. Hey, Apple, thanks for coming today. It's good to have you. All right, Debbie and Tandra, could you tell me if you've downloaded that file just so I can make sure it's working? Okay. Just want to make sure my mic is working. Apple, can you hear me? Want to make sure this is working. Not getting any responses, so I want to make sure that students can hear me. Having some technical difficulties here. Bear with me 1 second. I apologize. Okay. So we've got an overview of our information this week. We're going to do a review of just issue areas from last week. We've got a discussion. We've got our assignment and our assessment. So how did you feel that the discussion went? We talked about different scenarios with the designers. We talked about raster versus vector. Do you feel like you have a good handle on that now? Hopefully we kind of feel comfortable and we can, yeah. Okay, perfect. So sound's coming in. Okay, good. No problem. All right, assignment 1. Hopefully you guys, did you have any questions with it? Did you feel like you did okay on it? Was it a little too challenging? Did you feel like you were able to kind of get through it okay? All right. And then the assessment was a quiz, and that kind of threw a few of you for a loop. So if you haven't already taken your assessment, I want to encourage you to do that. You have until this Saturday to get that assessment turned in late for a small deduction in your grade, but it is important that you get that turned in. Now, I have some good and bad news. The bad news is we've got quite a few exercises to do with the pen tool, but that's happy news because the pen tool is a lot of fun. But the good news here is that your assessment for week 2, you can take as many times as you want. You have an unlimited amount of tries to get that assessment turned in. So that's the good news here. So if you don't do so well, you can improve on your grade. It's a didactic quiz that's going to give you some information and then have you answer questions based on the information that you just read. You're going to want to study up on anchor points and handlebars and know the difference between the two because you're going to be given diagrams and you're going to need to be able to say what is what. But the good news is you can take it multiple times, an unlimited amount of times. And so hopefully you take the time to do that and get a perfect score on it because I feel like students learn the best when you learn from your mistakes or you learn from what you got wrong and then you try again. So if you haven't got the assignment 1 in yet, or if you didn't do so hot as far as your grade was concerned, you get 1 resubmission. So you get a chance to resubmit it by this Saturday, and you can earn back some points that you lost. So that's exciting. And I like to offer my students that opportunity because I feel that they learn the best that way. You can learn from the critiques and the feedback and applying that. And that's real world situational stuff because when you are designing for a client or for an employer and they give you some feedback and want you to go back and make changes, you'll have to do that. So we might as well get in the habit of doing that, right? All right, great. So it downloaded. Thank you, Debbie, for letting me know. It says you can't open it. Okay, Tandra, do you want to share your screen real quick? We want to make sure you can get that open. I'll go ahead and stop the share. If you'll click share screen on yours, on your Zoom. Do you see that icon? It says share screen. Perfect. And then just select Illustrator or your desktop and then pull up that assignment. Where is that? And just make sure it finished downloading. That's the tricky part, is just kind of waiting for that file to download. Okay, perfect. Will you, okay, it's saying it's a PostScript conversion error. Okay, I don't know why it has an extension of PS. Could you go back and download it again from the website for me? I just want to make sure the file isn't giving you any trouble. Debbie, did you have any trouble opening that file? I know you have it downloaded. I just want to make sure everybody
No.
can. Yeah, so if you go to week 2, assignment 2, download under the announcements. says you can't open it. We'll try it again. Go to announcements. And I appreciate you doing this, Sandra. I just want to make sure that we can get it. Yeah, so click on that. Let's see if the file is. Okay, so click once on it. Okay, let's see what that file. Is that the error it's giving you? That's strange. It worked on my computer, so I want to make sure it's the same one. Okay, I'll save it as something else and I'll throw it back up there. I just want to make sure because this is the file we're going to be working on for all the tutorials. So I want to make sure that we've got a good handle on it. Let me see if I can email it. That might be a little bit easier. No, I'll just do the announcements. I'll edit it. Debbie, is it giving you that same error? See, what's weird is it's an Illustrator on my end file, but when you download it, it's downloading as a PostScript file. So I'm not sure why it's doing that. Are you on a Mac or a PC by any chance? Okay, I just re-uploaded it, so maybe try it again. And what I'll do is I'll email it to everyone in hopes that everyone can get it. Okay. Okay, so I've re-uploaded in the announcements and I've also emailed it. So why don't you try one of those links to let me know. We'll go ahead and close out and let me know if you have any trouble opening those files. If you do, we'll have to figure something else out. So, but for now, you can download the file in the assignment folder, and at least you have Artboard 1 and 3 that we can work on, and then we'll try to get page 2 up. Okay. Okay, so Debbie's was able to open up fine. Tandra, I'm not sure why it's giving trouble, but try clicking on the link in the email and let me know if that opened up for you. Do you have Illustrator on your computer, Tandra? Okay, so it should open. That's strange. Okay, check those links. I just re-uploaded under the announcements, so that's a new link, and then I just emailed it. So see if one of those opens, and just message me if you're having trouble. We'll maybe at the break we can kind of troubleshoot and see what's going on. All right, good. So this is our introduction. Sorry for the rough start. We're going to go ahead and jump into our lecture. We've got a lot to cover today. So we talked about raster versus vector, and a lot of you did a good job about telling me that raster was pixel-based, it was resolution dependent, vector was based on mathematics, and the resolution was independent, could be scaled up or down to any size without losing its quality, right? And then converting from vector to raster is pretty easy. The other way around is not so much. So vector files can be converted to any size, any resolution, but raster cannot. So we learned about the pros and cons in the discussion, and I really appreciated the points that you guys offered because it helped us all learn a little bit more about the difference. And the reason why we start off the bat learning about the difference between raster and vector is because we want you to understand the importance of designing vector files and not relying on pictures or photographs for designs. We really want you to learn how to create vector art and the importance that it plays in illustration. So remember, placing a raster file into an Illustrator and saving it as an Illustrator file does not make it a file vector. Does anyone remember from the discussion how to convert a raster file into a vector? Anyone remember that? I think I touched on it at one point, but we talked about taking your raster file, and then I'll do a little demo for you in just a minute, but you take it into Illustrator and then you click on image trace. So what we'll do is hop into Illustrator real quick, and I'll show you how to do that and then how you would reverse it. So let me grab an artboard here so we can practice on it. I'll grab my artboard tool and I'll just draw a little artboard here. All right, and then I just grabbed this Nike swoosh here. We'll practice. This is, as you can tell, is a raster image, right? Because it's super pixelated and I haven't even zoomed in yet. But if you see me zoom in, you can tell how pixel based it is. So it's very low quality, low resolution. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to actually convert well because it is so low res. But if you take a raster image and you go up to image trace here at the top, if you click on it, click on image trace, and what that does is it will convert it into a vector. You hit expand. Don't forget this step. This is just a display of showing you what it will look like. Now for my image tracing, what I can do is go to the drop down menu and I can say high quality photo, so it will preserve the red. Sometimes if it's too low res, it will have really let's see, distorted corners and edges. So that doesn't look too good. So I'll pick one that has a very clean look. This still is a little skewed here. It's not a very clean representation. So what I'm going to do is just do black and white. Hopefully, there we go. So now we have more clean edges along the lines. And then I can hit expand. And what that does is it makes it into vector art. So that's kind of a neat little trick here. So I can move it around. I can click my direct selection tool. And now you can see the way you know that an image has been converted to vector is if you see these anchor points. These anchor points are these little red boxes. And I'll zoom in nice and close so you can see them. So you can see these little red squares. When I hover over one, it expands a little bit. These are called anchor points, and you'll notice there's anchor points along each of the lines that connect to this shape. And then the line between each anchor point is called a path. And so you'll hear me talk a lot about anchor points and paths, and I want you to know what I'm talking about. This circle here represents the corner, if you want to round the corner out a little bit, or if you want to keep it nice and sharp and pointed. But since it's the Nike swoosh, we're just going to keep it as is. But what's neat about these anchor points is if you grab your direct selection tool and click on one, you'll notice that you get what we call handlebars. And these handlebars are these straight little lines that you can move up and down to create your shape. I can toggle them back and forth, and it will create my shape. It can also distort the shape a lot, so you need to be careful. Depending which direction these handlebars are pointed, you get a different direction or a different shape. So we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I wanted to just show you that raster versus vector. This is how you would convert a raster image into a vector. Now, if you wanted to convert a vector into a raster, you would just go to File, and then you would let's see, save for web, and then you would save it as a JPEG, and that's how you would do the reverse of that. All right, so are there any questions about that, the process of conversion and the difference between raster and vector? All right, if there's no questions, we'll keep going. All right, so let's talk about our assignment. We are going to go through the demo. I did want to talk a little bit about the problem areas that we had during assignment 1, and the only problem area that I ran into or I saw frequently was just skewing and distorting the shape of your objects. Basically, your shapes were either squished or stretched a little bit. Not everyone did this, but those of you who did run into this problem, I want to demo how to properly resize a shape or an object in Illustrator, okay? All right, so what we're going to do is go into here, Illustrator one more time. We're going to go back to our assignment 1. So the way that I want, and Artboard 3 kind of challenged some of you as well. I just want to make sure we're all familiar with how to use the Pathfinder tool. But here's, you have a perfectly round ellipse, a perfectly round circle. But sometimes we grab the anchor points, which can stretch our shape. So no longer is this a perfectly round circle. If I wanted to resize it, I would just hold down Shift as I click and drag. And holding down Shift will constrain the proportions so that my perfect circle is perfect no matter if it's small or if it's large. So holding down Shift is going to be your best friend when it comes to maintaining that perfect shape. A lot of stars that I saw were kind of squished and stretched, and that is a big no-no. We don't want to do that, okay? We don't just grab the anchor point and pull it. That's not how we make it bigger. How do we make it bigger? By constraining proportions or smaller. What's the secret? What do you hold down? That's right, you hold down Shift. So you select your shape, hold down Shift, click and drag at any anchor point, but holding down Shift will allow you to maintain a perfect shape all the time, okay? So this is a very important tool that you're going to need throughout your design classes. Holding down Shift is going to be your best friend because it's going to keep everything proportionate. We don't want skewed or stretched or squished. That's not the object here. Also, some of you kind of didn't all have the, I guess your triangle, your square needed to be 2 inches by 2 inches, and some of you didn't, the squares were smaller or too large. So we need to make sure that our shape is the right dimensions. And the way that you do that is when you click and draw an object, if you go here up at the top, your width and height, this will allow you to enter in the value that you need. Also, if you grab a shape, so say the rectangle tool, and I click and if I just click on my artboard, I can adjust the width and height here. So I'll just enter in the value that I need, 2 inches by 2 inches, and I'll hit OK. And it'll automatically draw that shape for me with those dimensions. So that's very important to remember. You don't always have to eyeball it. I want you to practice getting very specific and very detailed and down to the inch that we need, okay? So some of you kind of got a little tripped up there, but very simple mistakes, things that we can fix easily. And then a lot of you I saw kind of just randomly place shapes on your artboard. I'd like to see a nice composition. I'd like to see you create art with your shapes, not just put them arbitrarily on a page, okay? Because you're a designer now, so I want you to design something that's eye-catching or interesting, okay? So we're not just fulfilling assignments here, we're trying to be creators. This is the part where you can have fun with your assignment. And then the Pathfinder tool will need to be used for some of these shapes to get certain effects. And I made some comments on your assignments. I saw I think the cat with the teeth was designed, and when you're using teeth and trying to create a mouth, you want to get more realistic. So this is what I saw sometimes. I saw pretend this is the mouth. Let me get the black. So I saw a mouth, and then I saw somebody draw another circle and just filled it in with red and made it smaller. Like this, and just that was the tongue, and just called it good. But that's not what I'm looking for. What I want to see is more realistic. So what you're going to have to do is expand this circle out a little bit, kind of position it so that it looks like the tongue is taking up the entire mouth. You'll highlight the 2 objects, go to Window, Pathfinder, and then this is where you can divide your pieces. And then you just select the piece that you want to cut out. So by doing that, now I've created a more realistic tongue. And I even explained how to do that with the teeth coming down. So just check out the tutorial that I did during week 1's lecture. This will explain a lot more about the Pathfinder because we went into it quite a lot and in depth. So if you have any questions, you can ask me or just go check that demo out. But this is more of what I'm talking about. Make it look a little bit more realistic using the Pathfinder tool. All right, any questions about week 1, about comments that you got from your assignments, or is everything pretty self-explanatory. Just want to make sure that we're good to go. Okay, no questions. We'll move on. We're almost done with our slides. I touched on this a little bit at the beginning of class. What's neat about this assessment this week is it's going to allow you to take it unlimited times. So it's important to be able to discuss the differences not only between raster and vector artwork, but I want you to practice this as you move through your class. So you'll also have to name the tools that you're using and what they do, and then try completing all of the videos signed with Linda. This will help you as you learn, and then you can also be certified in Illustrator when you're all done. So that's kind of cool. Yes, and if you need help, please come on Thursday. I have the multi-session. It's basically open office hours, so you can come and we can work together on your assignments, get things turned in, receive a grade on the spot. Lots of fun there. Okay. So for our assessment, okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. There we go. So your quiz is going to be on handlebars and anchor points, the difference between them and where they are placed on, I guess, where they're placed. And so it's a didactic quiz that is going to have you read some information, and then they're going to give you a question about what you just read. So you'll have unlimited time and unlimited attempts to take this quiz until it closes on Saturday. So if you don't get a perfect score, please make sure that you take it again as many times as you want to get that perfect score. This will help you learn, and it will also help your grade. So please make time for it. This is a really neat opportunity. Not all quizzes give you this opportunity to take over and over. So take advantage of this. This is really great stuff. Okay, today we're going to be learning about curves and straight lines using the pen tool. Now, have you guys used the pen tool? Have you been familiar? Are you familiar with it at all, or is this going to be brand new? Some of you have. Okay. Okay, if you haven't, it's okay. We're going to start at the very beginning. This is be a very basic course on how to use the pen tool. I'm going to preface it by don't get frustrated. Even now, I'm well into my career, and I still am learning things about the pen tool, still trying to fine tune it. So it's a very long learning process, but I'll teach you a few tips and tricks, and I even have a game that you can play to kind of help you practice. So I don't know if any of you are into video games or not, but there's a computer game that will allow you to practice the Bezier curve. So how to create curves with your pen tool and shapes. It's really kind of cool, actually. So we'll delve into that. Yes, we touched on it in Design 109 as well. So if you've had me before, that's definitely something we've gone over. So today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a little bit more intense jump start into the pen tool, but we're also going to learn how to define and customize the key components of Illustrator's workspace. So I'm going to go into that. Our discussion is going to be talking about, that's going to kind of launch us in here to our discussion. If you haven't taken a peek at it, please do so. Tomorrow you have to have your initial post in so you get all full credit on the discussion. Okay, so tomorrow your initial post needs to be made. You've been asked to create a project that includes typography, multiple colors and patterns, and even a few images. So we're going to talk about how you would change your workspace. So I would like everyone to pull up Illustrator, get it open, and then we're going to go in and we're going to rearrange our workspace. And you're going to show me your workspace, okay? We're going to practice. I'll do a demo on how to do it, and then I'm going to turn the time over to you to do it. And if you would like to share your screen just to kind of show everybody what you did. The cool thing about customizing a workspace is that there's no wrong way to do it. You can personalize it as to the tools that you use the most and the projects that you're working on the most, and what projects are going to differ, and you're going to need different tools and things to use to manipulate. So you'll need different windows open. So this will allow you to create your own personal workspace. So we're going to talk about the panels and windows that you could add or group or close together. And then based on your research on custom workspaces, I want you to tell me when you think it's a good idea to create and save a unique space, because you wouldn't do this all the time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then how many workspaces might you save and why? Okay, so there's some questions. We're going to go over that right now. So if you'll pull up Illustrator, if you give me a smiley face to let me know that you've got your Illustrator open, go ahead and just open your assignment 1. If that's easy for you, or you can start a new document. It doesn't matter at this point, and we're just going to go over the different things that you could have. So if you'll go to your drop-down menu under Window, you'll see that their workspace will allow you to create. There's already some pre-saved workspaces, like Essentials will give you a different view. Essentials is just basically just libraries. If I go to Window, Workspace, and click on, let's see, Typography, which is what they asked us to look into, you'll notice that my workspace here has all my type tools. So my character, which I can change font and font size, and I can specify whether it's caps or lower caps. Paragraph, this will allow me to change the alignment of my text. So if I'm laying something out with a lot of typography, like a magazine or a book, this would be an excellent place to start. I would just use the Windows settings that are specified for typography. Now, if I was designing a website, the front end workings for the website, what I have here are properties, artboards. I'm going to be working a lot with layers, so this would be very helpful to have. And then also CSS properties, variables, and actions. This will give me more web-based tools that I can use in creating my website. So this is the workspace you can tailor to what you are using. I'm going to go back to Auto here, and you'll notice with each one it has a different view, different boxes. If I click this small double arrows up here at the top, it will open up these panels. So you can see now I've got my color tab, I've got my color guide, I've got different swatches and brushes. But what's funny is that when I'm designing for this class, I don't necessarily need my brushes or my symbols out. So that's something that I don't need, and I can customize it any way I want. So what I'm going to do is I probably need, let's see, I'll need the artboards open for this class. I've got my artboards tab open. I'll need my, let's see what else. I'll need my color guide, my color swatches, and I'll move this over here. Okay, great. All right, you've got yours open. Thank you. All right, so just follow along if you're on an iPhone or iPad or whatever. That's totally fine. And then, so I'll need my colors and my artboards. I've got my color picker here. Now, what's neat is you can take these panels, and if you kind of hover them right underneath each other, you'll see this blue line. And what that does is it connects them. So now these become one whole, and you don't have 100 different boxes floating around. That's kind of neat. You can click this little arrow, this double arrow here at the top right. This collapses your icons, so it makes it nice and small. So if you've got a lot of windows open and you don't need them all right now, you'll just collapse them, or you can expand them. That's also neat. So what you can do too is take your tab. You can kind of fit it up here. So you just have all your tabs in a row. But what I'm doing is I'm picking the panels that I'm going to be using the most. So for this tutorial, I want my artboards open, my color picker open. Let's see, I don't need my color guide, so I'll just click out of that. I'll probably need my layers. And I think that's all I need. I don't need actions, so I'll delete that. And my appearance panel, I don't need that, so I'll click out of that. Libraries, nope. And variables, nope. I just need it really simple. So links, definitely. Can even connect it here on the side. Can put a tab in there, and I'll just drag it over here. And that throws it into that panel. All right, so now I have adjusted, I've rearranged, I'm ready to design. So I want to save these settings. So I'll go to Window, go to a Workspace, and then you'll click all the way at the bottom, New Workspace. And this is how you'll save your workspace. So I'll give it a title that you'll remember. This is going to be Teresa's New Workspace, and then I'll hit OK, or you can label it something. Maybe it's a project you're working on. Like this one says web, and it's got its own web tools. This one says typography. It has its own type tools, lots of different things depending on what you're designing. So it's helpful to label, just like you would a layer, what you're going to be using it for. So there you go. At the top here, it's now saved Teresa's new workspace. Kind of cool, huh? So here at the top, I've got that. And then you can manage your workspaces. If you want to get rid of one, you can just, if you're all done with your project and you no longer need that view, you can just hit delete and it will say yes, and then hit OK, and then it gets rid of my workspace that I just had. So are there any questions on workspaces? How to customize, how to personalize, pretty simple. You'll just use the window drop-down menu to pick the panels that you're going to be working with. Once you have them arranged and laid out the way you want them, you'll just save it, and that becomes your new personalized workspace. That will save when you open up other projects as well. So it's pretty fun, kind of a neat thing to do. So if you have a minute, I would like you to personalize your workspace and let me know if you have any questions. So I'll give you 1 minute to do that. Just add some panels that you think you'll be working with, or maybe delete panels that you're not going to be working with. So for instance, I'm not going to be working with this properties panel, so I'm just going to pull it out and click the X and it disappears. I'm not going to be working with libraries, so I'll click that. But what I will be working with is my colors and my swatches. I'm going to definitely need my stroke out, so that's all good. I can even make these a little smaller by bringing up these windows to kind of fit more in. I can put my layers in here, just like that. All right. So if you have already done this and would like to share with the class, let me know. If we don't have any volunteers, we'll go ahead and move forward. But if there's anybody that would like to share what they've done, I would love to see it. But go ahead and take a minute to at least work on your workspace. All right. Is there anyone who'd like to share? Or if there's any questions, if you're getting stuck. So what's neat about this is you can add and remove as many panels as you want, and this now becomes your customized workspace. You can create a customized workspace by moving and manipulating document windows and even the panels, and you can also save workspaces and switch among them. So that's kind of neat. So there's a lot you can do in Illustrator, and the one thing that makes your work go faster and that helps you become an efficient designer is by customizing your workspace so that you have all the tools that you need. You can rearrange, you can dock or float documents, document windows. When you open up more than one file, the document windows are tabbed, just like you see here. I've got 2 files open, so those are tabbed. And to rearrange the tabbed document windows, you can kind of drag a Windows tab to a new location in the group. I can move this tab out if I want to, or I can close out, or I can move it back in. So that's another way to customize. Yeah, it is neat to play around with. So basically, I just wanted to show you how to organize it so you can participate a little bit more in the discussion and you kind of know what we're talking about. There's a lot of different tips and tricks you can find out there, but just want you to kind of, the panels you're going to use the most, which will probably be the color swatches, typefaces, and graphic elements. You can, if you're frequently using these things, then you can go to Window, open them up, and then arrange them where you want them, and then you can save your workspace. So you can find, this will help you find and locate files easier. It'll kind of, if you find yourself repeatedly performing the same tasks in Adobe Illustrator, then you're probably going to want to have these windows open. So rather than frequently performing the same tasks, reopening those panels, it's probably a good time to set up your Illustrator workspace to best suit how you work. So everyone works differently, so your workspace may look different than mine, but Adobe embraces that, and it allows you to customize this robust tool to improve efficiency. So there are many, many options to customize your workspace. So I hope that you follow along here and kind of help improve your efficiency and allow you to spend a little bit more time designing and less time trying to find tools. So just pick the ones that you use the most, okay? All right. Any other questions about that? Oh, I did want to touch on units. So first of all, you want to adjust the units to your preference. So if you go to Illustrator, click on Preferences, and then click on Units, sometimes when you open a new document, the units measurement might say points or picas, millimeters or centimeters or pixels. It's kind of the default. Whatever your software defaults to, it might not match mine. So I like to generally just change it to inches right away because that seems to be what I use most often in Illustrator. There are other mathematical conversions that you can use to get the same value, but if I was working with something that required me to use picas, I can change my preferences as I'm doing that, or if inches is going to be the one that you'll mostly be working in, this is probably a good idea to set up your units. I typically prefer inches for print or pixels for web. So you could change it to pixels if you're doing a web project. I normally only use points for font size or stroke width. So here's an option to use points. So you wouldn't really need that unless you were working with typography as the main art. So just adjusting the units in your default workspace is going to save you one extra step in future documents. So when you're opening your Illustrator and it doesn't display in inches or a unit of measurement that you're used to designing in, you can go and change it under the preferences. So that's kind of a neat place to make changes. So to adjust, just simply navigate to Illustrator. Very simple. Go to, let me close out of here. Go at the top to your top screen, Illustrator, Preferences, Units, and then select General Units that you prefer. So pick the one that you prefer, and then you're done. So that's kind of neat. When it comes to panels, I want you to think through the typical Illustrator tools that you use. Make sure that they're included on your panel sidebar here. So I've got colors. I use swatches a lot. I use the colors a lot. Layers, I'm always working with layers. And then because we're going to be working with the pen tool, I'm going to want my stroke open. So I have that open. But just you can align up the panels that you'll be working with on your sidebar. And these can include layers, artboards, swatches, Adobe CC libraries, links, Pathfinder, whatever you're going to be working with a lot or find yourself using a lot, you can put here. So you can drag and drop each panel to your order preference as well. You can also eliminate any panels that you don't frequently use in order to create a more clean space. So if I'm not using transparency, what I'll do is I'll just kind of drag this out and click the box. I don't need that. Gradient, I'm not going to be using gradient today, so I'll click that out. Appearance, nope, not going to need that. And graphic styles, I'm not going to need that. So I'm keeping it very simple here. I've just got four or five artboards. If I'm not using this, I'm going to click out of this. So very simple, very clean. And then remember, just navigate to Window, click on Workspace, and then go to New Workspace to save your current setup for future uses, okay? So very simple, but that's a neat way to kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about in week 2. All right, let's shift gears for just a minute. We're going to go back to the slides, and I'm just going to talk about our assignment. You know what? Let's just stay in Illustrator. We're going to just stay in Illustrator because we've got a lot to go over. All right, so let's talk about the pencil tool. This is assignment 2. Have any of you used the pencil tool before? The pencil tool is a lot of fun. It's actually it's not as, it won't allow you to have as much finesse as the pen tool, but it is fun to draw with if you've ever used it. So I'm going to share this slide real quick. We're going to talk about our assignment 2. Now the Illustrator document that you opened, hopefully you could open it and you see all 3 artboards. Each has a template. So if you don't see a template on artboard 2, please let me know as soon as possible so I can make sure you get that. But each template has different lines and shapes for you to draw using different tools. So if you've never used the pencil tool, you're in for a real treat because it's a lot of fun. You'll feel like a big kid again, just doodling. But like I said, each template has exercises for you to complete. You're going to download the document that I placed in, I emailed it to you, and I also put it under the announcement section of the homepage, so you can just click on that. Follow the instructions on each page, and then you're going to submit it. And that's the only design assignment you're doing this week, but there are 3 artboards, so it's going to be a little bit time consuming. Artboard 1, this is a lot of fun. If you'll look at artboard 1 right now, we're not looking for perfection. I just want you to experiment with the pencil tool. So while it doesn't have to be perfect, it does need to be complete. So hopefully that will kind of take off the burden a little bit, because I know some of us are brand new to the pencil tool. For artboard 2, we are looking for these lines to be very close. They may not be perfect, but they've got to be able to at least look like the example. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a minute. And then artboard 3, this drawing should be closely resemble the template, but we're going to go into the demo now. We talked about the assessment, and we're going to be talking about the demonstration. So we're going to be talking about pencil tool, pen tool, curvature tool, layers, and our stacking order. So let's stop the share. We'll go into Illustrator, and we'll talk a little bit about this pencil tool. So the instructions ask you on artboard 1 to use the pencil tool to draw these shapes, okay? Just draw them as best you can. So what you're going to do is go into your pencil tool or click on N on your keyboard. N is the shortcut. And what you'll do is you'll see as you're drawing a line how the line gets really wavy. What I encourage you to do is hold down Shift as you click and drag those straight lines, just so that you can keep your line straight, okay? Holding down Shift will allow you to create straight lines. So I want you to practice along with me if you can. Remember, if you hold down Shift, it will create those straight lines that you're looking for. All lines are straight or at 45-degree increments. So holding down Shift is going to help you keep that line straight. So that's what's helpful here on this exercise, is it's got a lot of sharp edges, a lot of sharp corners. You're going to need to hold down Shift so that you get accurate. And then just come back to your original point. So there you go. Now, before you start drawing, I encourage you to turn off your fill. Set your fill to none. You can do it here at the bottom of your toolbar, or you can do it up here at the top. So if your fill is red or whatever color, you'll want to set it to none so it doesn't fill it in. You want to be able to see the stroke or the outline of your pencil tool. Then you'll go to stroke down here, and you can give it a color. I like to use black, or you can use a color that will stand out so that you can see what you're doing. I'm going to go nice bright red here so I can see the outline of my shape. Now, you don't need to fill it in. I prefer that you just keep the fill set to none and just have the stroke here. Okay, and the stroke doesn't need to be adjusted. 1 point is just fine. You don't want to go any thicker than the example that it gives you. Now, you probably need to try that exercise using the pen tool, but what we're going to do is move over to this little guy here, because using the the pencil tool, we're still on the pencil tool for these 3 images. Now remember, holding down Shift will allow you to create a sharp straight edge. And you can kind of just trace it. Hold down Shift. Oops. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we're just kind of getting used to using the pencil tool. You can click and release if you want to start over. If you mess up, what you do is just hit Command Z if you're on a Mac or Control Z if you're on a PC, and this will allow you to have to be able to back up. So if I didn't like that line, I'll just hit Command Z, and that will delete it and allow me to try again. See, I didn't like that one, so I'm just gonna kind of go in here. Now I'm just going to do a quick, fast draw. I want you to take your time. While it does not need to be perfect, I do want you to try to get as accurate as you can, because the more you practice that, the better you'll be at this tool. So we're going to kind of go through here. I'm just going to go really fast because for sake of time. Holding down Shift will help you get that nice straight edge. And you'll notice as you are tracing that your pencil tool kind of automatically corrects itself a little bit. If your lines are a little off, it'll kind of correct it. So there's my tracing, and then I'll do the fish with the pencil tool, and then this little swoosh underneath it. All right, now it's a little trickier when you're doing the curves with the pencil tool, so you'll kind of have to be a little bit more fluid with it. Just kind of move it along, try to get as close as you can. There we go. And if you don't like something, you can always hit undo to back up. Now it asks you to do the same exercise using the pencil tool, okay? Or I'm sorry, the pen tool. So if you'll click on your pen tool, you'll note that there is lots of different anchor point, lots of different tools, hidden tools here. The pen tool is the one you'll want to click on, and you can click on P on your keyboard. That will also bring it up. The pen tool is a little trickier, and we're going to go into this. But what this does is it allows you to click once, hold down Shift if you want straight lines. It's just like the pencil tool. Practice tracing using straight lines, okay? Hold down Shift the whole time, and that will keep your lines nice and straight. This is generally a pretty simple exercise. You just want to make sure that you're keeping your edges straight and that when you come back to your anchor point, that you close off the shape. All right? And that seems pretty simple. So I want you to take a minute, practice with the pencil tool and practice with the pen tool. And if you want to share your screen, let me know and we can kind of see what you've done. I'd love to see your exercises. All right, so how's it coming? Are we a fan of the pencil tool or the pen tool a little bit more? The pencil tool, yeah, it's easier to draw because we can kind of move the mouse where we want. Does anyone want to share their screen to show me what they've done? You have that opportunity if you'd like to do that. All right. We'll talk a little bit more about the pen tool in just a minute. I wanted to introduce the curvature tool real quick. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what it's doing. It's a different tool, and I'll show you where to find it. So I'm going to zoom in here on this screen. I'm going to kind of minimize these boards so we can see. Now, on your toolbar, you'll find that there is a tool called the curvature tool, which is right underneath your pen tool, right here. Do you see that? It's got a little curvy line attached to it. If you click on Shift plus, there's a keyboard shortcut for it. Okay, so with this curvature tool, so let's talk about this. In Adobe Illustrator, one of the more challenging tools for beginners and even advanced users, I'll put that out there, is the pen tool. It's no easy tool to master, and you'll find that it can sometimes get frustrating. It's not particularly intuitive of the beginner either, so the pen tool is challenging because it really requires an investment in time. So one would say, sometimes I get questions like, how do you know where to click and to create the next anchor point? It just gets confusing. There's often no good answer because a lot of it comes down to just experience. You kind of have to play around with the pen tool. But Adobe Illustrator CC provides users with a new tool called the curvature tool. So this is a new addition. You're going to find that the curvature tool in the tools panel right here, directly below the pen tool in one single column view, or it's directly to the right of the pen tool if you have a double column view. But this is the tool that you're going to select. Now, the curvature tool takes a redesigned approach to drawing paths in Illustrator. So while the pen tool is more of a precision tool that requires you to think about where you're going to place an anchor point and how to pull out direction lines to control line segments, the curvature tool takes a more intuitive approach to drawing by asking the user to click along the path that you want to create while you're drawing along that path. So another big difference is the lack of modifier keys. It doesn't allow you the freedom to kind of, modify as much as you want with the like the pen tool. So you can see as I move out, it will start creating a curvy line. So what you want to do is just start drawing. Don't let it, oop, back up. Let's try here. So you can click once. Oops. You just keep drawing. Don't hover over it too much. You can hold down Shift if you want more of a straight line. We got one there. You can kind of manipulate the points. I want you to play along with it. It's going to be pretty curvy. It's going to be interesting. Remember, you can hold down Shift if you want to get more of a straighter line. But basically, another big difference is the lack of modifier keys, like I talked about. So you don't need to remember a bunch of shortcuts with combinations like Command, Control, or Option, or Alt, and Shift to use the curvature tool. With the curvature tool selected, you simply click once to create the initial anchor point, and you'll notice that clicking and dragging moves the location of the anchor point that you're going to draw. So, for instance, if I'm moving it, it's curving automatically. Do you see that? So you can kind of just click several times to get a straight line, or you can click out and see how much it curves in, like that. So the secret to this is to click quite a few times to get it to be a straight line, because it's going to kind of want to curve out. So click once, oop, why is it connecting? Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm going to click once, hold down Shift, click once. You're going to kind of want to click a few times to kind of get that straight. line, hold down shift a few times. Get that straight line. It's going to be a little tricky. You're going to just want to play with it. This is a new feature that they've added, so it's kind of neat that it allows you to kind of play around with this tool. So when you come back to the anchor point that you first created, the curvature tool will allow you to click that anchor point to close the path. So there's a little circle here. So if I was going to close this path here, it will allow me to connect them like that. So here's a little tip. You can double click to create straight path segments. So double clicking. So by default, the curvature tool will close the path with a curved line segment, which may not be what you want. I may not want this to curve like this. So what I can do is double click it and it will straighten that line out. So that's kind of handy. But you can create a corner point. You can that is used to create straight line segments by double clicking on the original anchor point. So we'll back up here. You can see how it just wants to curve out of the way it's created. But by double clicking, I can now double click, create straight lines. Oops. Hold down shift. Like this. So you can see how it will let you do that. You got to click directly on that anchor point or it won't work. Hold down shift, double click, hold down shift, double click. So I want you to practice that. You can do straight line segments and a smooth point or a curved segment. So as you move over here to this guy with this eye here, this curvature tool will really be helpful. You'll kind of want to just watch it as it curves around. There we go. But remember, if you want a straight line, you'll double click on it. And that tells it not to curve. So it's kind of interesting. It takes a little bit of practice to master. But once you have, it's pretty fun to play with. So just double click on that anchor point, that original anchor point, and that will take away that natural tendency to want to curve your lines. This will help you get a more precise tracing. Are there any questions about the curvature tools? Now with the making, with making modifications, with the curvature tool, you can adjust the anchor points on any path by clicking and dragging to reposition them. So if I click on this tool here, my direct selection tool, so I can either click on an anchor point and hit delete, or I can delete the whole segment or a portion of that segment. So my direct selection tool, if I select something, will allow me to delete. Okay. If you're drawing an open path, one that doesn't create a closed shape, so say this is my open path right here, I didn't connect it all the way, you can either press the escape key on your keyboard to tell Illustrator that you're done drawing this object. So I can hit escape and it will say, okay, you're all done drawing it. Or you can hold down the command control key and click anywhere on the artboard to deselect the object. So what I can do is hit the command key and deselect, and that means that, hey, I'm done drawing, even though I didn't close it off. But you can keep going and then connect it. So that's another thing. All right, so another thing I wanted to show you under preferences, this might be helpful for your quiz as well. If you go to preferences, system preferences, the preview of the line segment that you're about to draw is one of the features that I like about the curvature tool. I think it's especially useful for beginners. So if you're just setting out, I'm sorry, not system preferences, click on Illustrator preferences and go to general. There we go. Hang on one sec. Are there any questions about the curvature tool before I go into this at all?
You can't get yours to download?
Okay, so you go to Illustrator, Preferences, Selection, and Anchor Display. And then this brings up your preferences box. Now, this preview, or what we call rubber banding, as Illustrator likes to call it, it can be disabled in the Illustrator preferences as well. So simply open the Preferences dialog box by pressing Command K or Control K if you're on a PC. Then click on the Selection and Anchor Display category. So this is the one we're on right here. And then at the very bottom of this dialog box, you'll see the options for enabling or disabling the rubber band for the pen or the curvature tools. So right here. You can set your tolerance, your snap points. You can kind of mess around here, but down here is where you can select pen tool or curvature tool. So choose the option that best suits your needs. I wouldn't necessarily mess with this, just stick with the default settings, but as you start become a seasoned designer, you may want to kind of tweak your anchors and your handlebars a little bit, and you want to mess with your settings and display. So this is probably a good place to do it. All right, and then we'll just hit OK. So basically, guys, I've been a pen tool user for probably 15 years. So it's still my go-to tool for silhouetting physical objects like this in Illustrator and drawing technical elements in Illustrator, or maybe physical objects in Photoshop. But I've found that myself reaching for the curvature tool more and more when I need to draw really organic shapes for projects or for logos. And I feel like it allows me to be a bit more creative and doesn't really require as much thought or planning. So beginners and users who are adverse to using the pen tool should really invest 30 minutes with the curvature tool to just see how easy it is to use. So remember, double click to get those straight lines, and then click once to get that curve that you're looking for. I think everyone will find that it's a really good addition to Illustrator, since it was a new feature that they've added, and one that hopefully you'll take advantage once you get the hang of it. So we're going to practice with the curvature tool, and then you're going to practice with the pen tool and then the pencil tool on these exercises. And hopefully they'll look about the same. That's the idea, is to get that same look, and you'll see how each tool kind of gives you a different result. Okay, are there any questions about these three tools that we just went over? Okay, if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and move forward. Let's see. Let's take our 10-minute break here. It's a good place to stop before we jump into what more the pen tool can do. So we're going to do a quick break, and then we will come back and talk about the pen tool, and then we'll go over these exercises. And I want you to do them with me so that if you get stuck, you can ask your questions now. You don't have to wait till Thursday. So we'll be back in 10 minutes.
buddy. What you doing, buddy? What my buddy doing? What my buddy doing? Indica, Indica. All gone, buddy. All gone, buddy. Indica, Indica. Come here, baby girl. Here.
All right, we're back. And we are going to jump right back into Illustrator. We're going to talk about the pen tool a little bit. So if you'll select pen tool on your toolbar, again, you can find it, it's kind of the fourth or fifth tool down. So, or by clicking P on your keyboard, you can select the pen tool. This is the pen tool. And the pen tool is a lot of fun. It works similar to the curvature tool, except it does allow you way more manipulation, and you can tweak things a lot easier. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And let me just get my windows pulled up. Okay. So how did you feel it went? Did you get to practice while we were on our break, or did you take a break? Hopefully got to experiment a little bit with it. So I'm going to be demonstrating, just doing a brief introduction to the pen tool inside Adobe Illustrator. And if you haven't used it before, you definitely want to listen up. Took a break. Okay, good. All right, so the pen tool is probably one of the most important tools available inside Adobe Illustrator. And although it's simple to use, it is extremely powerful and versatile for creating and modifying your artwork and designs. You'll look at this first exercise here. We're going to create a star. This exercise is going to test your ability to create straight lines. The pen tool is very simple, as we saw on the first artboard. Simply clicking and holding down Shift will allow you to create those straight lines, but simply clicking individually on each of these points allows you to create these straight lines. It's unlike the curvature tool. It won't give you those automatic curves. You don't have to double click every time, but just simply clicking on each point of the star will help you create the shape. And you want to go back to the original anchor point that you drew to close the shape. You want to have closure on it. Yeah, this is the assignment you had trouble on. Yeah, it's a little tricky, so we're gonna practice, and I'll give you a link that you can try to use in just a minute, so we can basically using the pen tool is going to it's a refining process. You got to practice and put a lot of time into it. You think you're just going to do this assignment on Friday night or Saturday, you've got another thing coming. You're going to definitely want to take each day and practice these exercises until you get it just right. So let's see, where'd we go? So select the pen tool again. We're going to practice curved lines. So you're going to turn off your fill. Remember, you want to set your fill to none. You can either do it down here or you can do it up here on your color. Set it to none, okay? You only want your stroke to display. So just have your stroke selected. It doesn't really matter what color you have it selected to, just something that shows up against this gray background here. And you're going to click the none box like I showed you to turn off the fill. It's just this white square with a red line going through. Now if I apply a fill to it, I'll show you as I'm doing these exercises. Let me show you what happens if your fill is turned on. See that? You're going to start seeing this. And that's going to get a little confusing. You see? So when I start moving my pen tool around, all of a sudden it's giving me this funky looking shape. It's because it's filling in my shape as I'm drawing it, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our fill to turn it off, and we're going to give our stroke some color. So I'm picking red because this seems to show up easier. Now we're going to follow the instructions that it gives you. So the instructions get a little bit more confusing as we go on, but just read them carefully and do exactly what they say. Now, if I apply a fill to it, I showed you what it looks like if I apply a fill to it, but if there's a gap, like if I'm coming around here, but I didn't close off this shape, it won't allow me to apply the fill. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but what I wanted to show you is the circle. So you're going to click and hold down, then drag your handlebars to number 2. Hold down shift for a straight handlebar. Then I'm going to see how here I can move my pen tool anywhere. It's going to give me an automatic curve. I'm going to click on 3, hold down, drag to 4. Hold down shift to give you that straight handlebar. Then release, go to 5, click and press here, hold down shift. That will give you that straight handlebar. A straight handlebar gives you a perfect curve. That's why it's important to click it. So hold down on 7, click and press, drag to 8, hold down shift, then release. Now, just because it doesn't have 9 doesn't mean you leave this circle half open. You're going to close it. Go to number 1 again, click and drag your handlebar to number 2. That will close out your shape. So we want a perfect circle. So I want you to practice that, okay? Now we want to close this because we don't want a gap. We don't want a gap in our shape at all. Now I'm going to go to my pen tool, and if I hold it down, you'll notice that there's these hidden tools as well. There's add anchor point tool, a delete anchor point tool, and then you have something called the anchor point tool. Now each one does something a little different, but if I grab my direct selection tool and I zoom in here, if I grab my add anchor point tool and hover over my path, if I can click anywhere on this path and it automatically adds a new anchor point. Now this is red, so I'm going to change my stroke so you can see what I'm doing. So I'll change it to as yellow here. Now if I click my add anchor point, I can add an anchor point or as many as I want on this path. So I can have several anchor points or a few anchor points. To delete an anchor point, you can just click on delete anchor point tool and click on the anchor point that you want to get rid of. Now be careful, because as you do this, it will adjust the shape of your circle. So by deleting anchor points, it's now going to distort the look of my circle. No longer is it going to be this perfect circle. So you'll use this sparingly, but this is definitely a tool that you'll want to use to get different effects, okay? So just have the pen tool selected, and once again, hit P on your keyboard to go back to it. Now I'm just going to draw a box here, just a simple little box like this, and wherever you are on your artboard is where you'll begin your shape. I'm just, like I said, just drew this box. Now as I move the pen tool over different lines, you'll see a plus sign that appears. So I'm going to move my pen tool over here. So see how I moved my pen tool on this path? The path is the line between your anchor points. The anchor points are those little squares. You hover over it, it will say anchor. It's the square in the corner or the square in the middle. The path is the line in between. And I can click on anywhere in between this path to create new anchor points. Using my direct selection tool, I can manipulate these anchor points. So I've added some, and now I can manipulate them, and I'm creating a whole new shape here. So it's pretty cool. Now, if I don't want an anchor point, what tool would I use? If I want to get rid of an anchor point. I would use the delete anchor point tool, right? So I would click on the anchor point that I want to get rid of. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Debbie. You click on that, and now all of a sudden, it's fixing my square. Okay? And it's giving me a different shape. All right, so what we're going to do now, if I were to grab my direct selection tool, can move this around. If I grab my anchor point tool and click and drag, it now gives me a Bezier curve. So you see how I pull this handlebar, and as I toggle it left and right, up and down, it now gives me a different, what we like to call the Bezier curve. So this is the handlebar that adjusts the curvature of the path between my two anchor points. And you'll notice I can click on any one of these anchor points, and I can get a different shape or a different outcome here. So it's kind of interesting. It creates much more organic shapes this way. Now, you can use the Convert Anchor Point tool. This adds a whole new range of things because it works with these curves. So if I was to click and hold and drag, you'll see that I can create these curves by using my direct selection tool. And each anchor point will have its own handlebar to adjust. Like that. So hit P on your keyboard again. That'll give you your pen tool. Now this time we're going to make a point and click and hold. So when you click and hold an anchor point, you can make a curve. So like this, click once and click and hold. This allows me to make a curve. Like this. Going back to kind of close it. So you're going to be practicing a lot with these exercises. I just want you to experiment with what the pen tool can actually do. Now, let's see. Now, what have I gone over? The curves. Let's do the exercise real quick. So we practiced how to do the circle. We're going to go down here at the bottom. Now, in gray, you see what it's going to look like. So we need to be able to follow along this example. So we're going to grab our pen tool, follow directions. It says click and press here, hold down the shift key so you have a straight handlebar. Then you're going to go to 3, click and drag it down, holding down shift. Click on 4, drag that handlebar up. Click on 7, click and drag that handlebar down to 8. And that is what it should look like, okay? I'm going to make this red so it stands out. Pick a color that stands out against that gray for me, will you? It's sometimes hard to see. And then we're going to grab our pen tool again. We'll hold the shift key and drag to 2. We'll go to 3, then release, then click and hold, click and release, click and hold, and drag. Click and release, click, hold, and drag. And that will give you this nice little wave design. So it gets a little bit more complicated as you move down here. We've even added an extra one, curves with corner points. This one requires you to follow a little bit more directions. So you'll click, press here, you'll drag your handlebar up, hold down shift, go down to 3. So it's the similar exercise. You're dragging to 4, And then you're going to want to hold down the Alt Option button. Now notice when I hold down the Alt Option button that I get the tool that we saw over here, the anchor point tool. And that will allow me to bring the handlebar up to 6. Now I can take my pen tool and click on 7. Whoops. Let me back up real quick. I was switching tools. So my pen tool, so click, hold down Shift, click on 3, hold down Shift and drag. So then when you drag to here, you're going to release the mouse. You're going to hold down Alt Option, move the handle upwards. Then on 7, you're going to click here, hold down Shift, hold down Alt Option to bring that handlebar up. And then you're going to click on 11 and drag it. Hold down Alt Option to redirect it. And we'll talk about why we are doing this in just a minute. Hold down and drag, okay? And that is how we release. Now to release your pen tool, you have to release it. So, because if you notice, it's ready to keep going. So if I move it over here to go to the next exercise, see how it's following me? I don't want that. So just hit Escape on your keyboard, and that will tell it'll tell the pen tool to end right there. You'll need to get your selection tool and just click on the artboard to deselect it. Then you can move forward. Don't let your pen tool move to the next exercise as you're doing it, okay? It needs to be, you need to cut it off. So just hit Escape and it will get rid of that for you. Your direct selection tool or your selection tool, then you can just click on your artboard to deselect it. So this time we're gonna make a point and we're gonna click and hold, like I said. So I'm gonna make a point here, click and hold. And as I do that, I get this curve. So when you click and hold an anchor point, you can make a curve. If you try to click it again, you can tell it to automatically start to draw another curve that intersects with the curve that you've previously drawn, like this. Kind of interesting, right? Now, what I like to do is click on the last point that I made, which stops it from automatically generating a new curve. So now it's not going to curve, it's just going to be a straight line. Do you see that? So if I was clicking, we'll start here. So click 2 points, click and hold, and you can make a curve. And then I'm going to keep going, but it's ready to keep curving. See how it automatically has this natural curve? Well, if I want to keep that natural curve from happening, I'm going to hold down, I'm going to click the original anchor point, and that will now give me a straight line. So it won't give me that curve. So that's a way to turn off the curve on your pen tool. So that's kind of neat. So it doesn't automatically generate a new curve if you don't want it to. You can fine tune it to exactly what you want. So for instance, we have this shape that we created. Okay, and then now I want to adjust the handlebars. I can click on the anchor points and kind of play around with the direction of the handlebar. Will tell you the direction that your pen tool will go next. So if you're watching, if I'm going straight, you'll notice that my handlebar is straight. But if I want to start curving out, the direction of my pen tool is now going to take me at the angle that my my handlebar is. So I need to hold it down, hold down Alt Option, and I can redirect this handlebar. So now my pen tool will automatically follow along. So if I want now I can kind of complete this. So if I'm going to try to make a rectangle, I'm going to click, hold down Shift. But if my handlebar is pointing out, I need to redirect that. So I'm going to hold down Alt Option and bring in that handlebar. So now I have this perfect curve. All right, so I'm able to redirect the handlebar to the direction that I want to go. You'll hold down Alt Option to get that to redirect, okay? If you want more control, just click on that particular point and it removes the adjustment line, and that way your next point will be a straight line from wherever you last clicked it. And also, if I use the direct selection tool, so I'll get the direct selection tool, or you can click on A as a keyboard shortcut, you can highlight one of these curves and I can manipulate one of these points. So I'll click on one of the anchor points and now I can kind of manipulate the distance or the curvature of these points. Or maybe I just want a straight line. Maybe I don't want a curve at all. Holding down Shift will allow me to now create more straight edges. All right. Now at any point you can click P on your keyboard to go back to the pen tool. And click on P on your keyboard and then find the last point that you happen to make and click on it and continue. So if you want to keep going, click on that last point and you can continue. This is what we call compound paths when we connect two shapes. Now, if I were to stop here, if I'm done and I didn't close out this path, what's going to happen is if I try to give it a fill, let me do a black fill, or I'll give it a black stroke and a red fill. You'll notice that my fill or my stroke doesn't close. So this is why we have to close out our shapes. So we have to close them in. The fill will fill in the gap, but it's very important that you make sure that you close out your shape. So I'll go over this again. If you don't close a shape, like you see here, you'll see that it doesn't properly close, and therefore the fill will automatically complete that the gap between the points that it has to work from. But this is why I tend to add the fill at the very end, because if you see the fill in the beginning, it will kind of mess you up. Also, you can change the shapes of your lines, but going to Window and clicking on Stroke, Window and click on Stroke. Oops. Here we go. Show options. Here we go. You'll notice that you can play with the cap, which will round out the ends of your lines, or you can go to your round join. So it will now curve the corners of your shape. If I were to draw a straight line with the pen tool, holding down Shift and clicking this, and if I clicked on the cap, so basically, if you want to round your corners, you just want to select round join, which is this corner setting right here in the middle, and that will give you corners with softer edges. But if you draw a line and not a complicated shape, you can go up to cap here, and then you can select round cap. And now your shape has a really nice round corner instead of the hard edge of the milter join. And it's a personal preference thing, or whatever you're trying to accomplish, if this is the effect you want to give it. But this is neat to know that you can go into your stroke and kind of change the settings of your stroke line. I pulled up the Nike swoosh last time. If we have time, we'll go over that. Let me see if I can drag it in real quick. Pull in the Nike swoosh here. A very pixelated Nike swoosh. And let's practice with the pen tool. This would be a good practice for you at home too. You can kind of just Google image it. That's what I did. And I like to zoom in here. I'm going to pick a stroke that doesn't, and I'm going to change the opacity so that I can see what I'm doing. I'll go to my opacity, kind of lighten it up. And then I'm going to pick a different color stroke. So I'm going to turn off my fill and click on my stroke. And now this will allow me to click and pull those handlebars until I get just the right curve that I need. Now, if you'll notice, when I go in to place my next point, it's not going to give me that beautiful curve that I want. It's kind of off a little bit, so I need to hold down Alt Option and move that handlebar up a little bit. Just slightly, so I can get that curve just right. And then this handlebar here, like this. I'm going to go all the way to the top. Zoom out. Right here. And just kind of move that handlebar in and around so you get a really nice curve. Okay. You can hold down Alt Option to kind of manipulate these points a little bit. Now, if you don't like, if you'll zoom in here, remember, hit Escape when you're done. You can see here I'm a little off. So what I can do is grab my direct selection tool and I can play around with the curvature of my lines. Or I can even delete an anchor point if I want to start over again, like that. And then I can kind of bring this in, just like that. And maybe I can manipulate this one as well. I'm going to grab this handlebar. I'm going to bring it in. Just like that. So you'll get it roughly as close as you can. So practice with the pen tool, practice tracing something. These exercises are great. I also wanted to show you a game that you can play online. If you want to get really good at getting used to the practicing with the pen tool, I'm going to show you, I'm going to put a link in the chat box. I'll also post this as well. Click on that link. Oh, whoops, not that one. This one, the Bezier game. And then I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it does. This is a really neat exercise. It kind of makes learning the pen tool really fun. It does, because it's an online game, you do have to be accurate. So it also helps you kind of does a little demo for you of what the shapes are supposed to look like. So you can click, and then you just have to get as accurate as possible. You can hold down Shift. This will allow you to maintain those straight lines. It will show you the direction you need to go. It also gives you a limited amount of anchor points to use. So if you go over your limit, it forces you to fine-tune your work, which is really nice. So it says right here, 4 nodes remaining, meaning I can only do this in 4 more clicks. So that's really cool. And as long as you're within this general gray area, it will allow you to move on to the next exercise. So as you can see, this was one of our exercises in Illustrator. I'm simply going to click and hold down Shift, click, hold down Shift to drag my handlebars out to get that perfect curve. Like that. Oop, hold down Shift. So I want you to play around with this. This is a lot of fun. This one's a little bit tricky, but I want you to be able to practice, and you can redo, or you can clear the stage, snap to an angle, unlink your control points. You can undo if you need to hit Command Z if you're on a Mac, but you can also replay the tutorial if you want to see how this is supposed to go. You can skip the tutorial stages and just start drawing. This is a really fun exercise and a really fun game to kind of practice and play with. So I want you to take a minute and kind of click on the link, experiment a little bit with this. It's kind of neat to see you can get close to what they were wanting. Oops. Oop, I'm gonna have to start over. Anyways. Oh, it's gonna make me start over. Let's see if it'll take me back. Okay. So just kind of play around with it and see. It's not letting me click. Come on. Might have to refresh my page. For some reason it's not. So want me to start here? Oh, okay. All right. And creating a half circle is just the same exercise that we've been doing in creating a circle. Oops. If it doesn't like a certain placement, we try again. But just kind of practice and see how well you can do. This is actually a really good exercise you can do from home. If you need more practice, you're just like, I'm just not getting the pen tool, this is a great way to do it. Whew. It's not going to let me. Only problem with this is it won't let you manipulate the handlebars, so you have to get pretty accurate. And so I'll show you. It says, oh, you're out of nodes, meaning it won't let you go any further if you've clicked too many times. So it wants you to perfect what you've done, which is kind of nice. It won't let you go outside of that gray area either. So you kind of have to, see, I'm out of nodes. So you kind of have to get it as many times as they'll allow you to, but it's kind of a neat exercise. So hopefully you have some fun with that. I want to go back here and I want to show you the butterfly before we have to go. This will, this is actually a fun exercise. Don't be intimidated by it. It's actually going to be easier than you think. This one will allow you to use the pencil and the pen tool and all the other tools that we've been using up to this point. But a really simple way to tackle this one is to grab the pencil tool. You could do the pen tool or you can do the pencil tool, and I want you to kind of just trace it. The ones with texture to it, you're going to want to just trace. So these wings here have some texture to them. You can fine tune it later. Now I'm going very fast because I'm trying to beat the clock. This will allow me to draw. Now the key to doing this will just do one side of the wings, and then we're going to copy and flip it. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of get as close as you can, grab the direct selection tool. You can move these curves in, grab the handlebars. I want you to kind of get as close as you can. You can use the delete anchor point tool if you need to get in closer or you have too many points. Another tool you can use is called the smooth tool. The smooth tool will allow you to kind of click and drag around certain points. It will kind of adjust. If you want to kind of curve out the wings a little bit more, that's kind of nice. I like the rough edges because that just shows that we got a little bit more accurate. You can then set the fill to black like this, and you can change the opacity on it so you can see through it. So I've set it to black, and now I can go in and use the pen tool. You can either trace the shapes or you can use your pencil tool. However you want to tackle it, you'll go in and make those shapes with the butterfly. You got to close out each one. Then you'll give it a color. So give the fill a color. Each shape is going to be a little different, so use that pencil tool to kind of go in. Make it look nice and colorful. Make sure the stroke is turned off. We don't want the stroke. So I'm going to go in with my pencil tool. I'm going super fast because I want to show you what it looks like. And then, so like this one, I could probably use the pen tool for it because it's a perfect circle. There's my pen tool that I drew. You could also use the pencil tool. Kind of fill it in. Try to get as accurate as you can. Then you're going to give it color. So I want you to color it and only do one side first. And here's why. Once you've done all the colors, you've colored this butterfly, and you can turn off the opacity. So you will have colored in your entire butterfly before you flip it. But what you're going to do is hold down Shift, select all of your elements, so only do one side. Then you're going to copy, paste. Then you're going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect. This will save you a lot of time. You can preview it, hit OK, and what it does is it flips all of those objects. So now you have both wings. Do not do this step until you've colored in your entire butterfly wing, until all these shapes are done. So until you've got all of these traced or drawn. Kind of have fun with this too. This is a really good opportunity to be creative. You can use your smooth tool to kind of smooth out these edges a little bit. Here we go. Oops. Oh, I'm on my smooth tool, not my pencil tool. Okay. So just trace this, close your shape, give it a color. All right, and then I'll show you how I did that one more time. So say you've colored in your whole butterfly, you're ready to flip it, highlight all of your shapes, you'll copy and paste, then you'll go to Object, Transform, Reflect. Make sure your reflect is vertical at 90 degrees, and if you click your preview box, you'll see it before you hit the OK. You'll hit OK. And now you've got a mirror image of that wing, because the other side is the mirror image side, okay? So you don't have to draw it all over again. You can just make a copy. So that is probably the easiest way to tackle this assignment. Are there any questions? Hopefully you have a lot of fun with this one. Okay, check out that game, that pen tool game. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to learn the pen tool. I did want to show you this one here. This last one seems to trip up a lot of students, so I'll do a quick demonstration on how to do it, and then I think we'll be ready to close. So I'll grab my pen tool, and this is tricky, so read the directions. Click and press, then you're going to drag your handlebar to number 2. Then release. Whoops. If you mess up, just hit Command Z or Control Z. Click and press, then drag to 2. Then you'll have to go to 3. Boop, right here. Click and press, then drag your handlebar to 4. Don't go all the way down. Oh, and my fill is turned on, so I'm just going to swap that. Then on number 5, I'm going to click and press in the anchor point that I just created, and then I'm going to drag it to number 6. All right, now I'm going to go to 7. I'm going to click and then drag the handlebar to 8. I'm going to go back to 9, click it. I'm going to hold down the Alt Option key, click and press this anchor point again, and I'm going to move my anchor point or my handlebar down. What I'm telling this, I'm redirecting the handlebar because I'm telling it what direction I'm going to go next. So after I get to 10, I'm going to go click here at 11. So I'm going to press and click and drag the handlebar to 12. And then I'm going to go to 13, which is click and press in the anchor point again, and then drag the handlebar to 14. There are 16 dots or instructions. So once I'm at 14, I'm going to go to 15, which is over here, and it says hold down the Alt Option key before you click and press, and then you're going to drag in the anchor point like this. Okay, and now I can, if I gave it a fill, you would see that it makes that nice shape. So it's, but just keep it stroked. Don't give it a fill. So you can see that depending on how much time you spend on it, you'll get as accurate as possible, all right? That's the shape it's supposed to make. It's a little tricky, but anyways. All right, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for sticking it out. I hope you have fun with the pencil tool and with the fill and the stroke tool. I hope you practice with the pen tool and the curvature tool. Are there any questions before we have to go? Now is your chance. I also want to put the plug in to come visit me on Thursday in the multi-session. I would be happy to work with you and help you if you're struggling. Practice the pen tool. Don't wait till the last minute to do this assignment. You're going to need all the time you can and all the practice so that you can fine-tune the pen tool. But don't get frustrated because it does take many years to really perfect it. All right. Thanks for coming, Debbie. We'll see you. I also wanted to let you guys know, let me go back here. You guys are welcome to head out if you need to. We talked about the curvature tool, talked about the pen tool and the pencil tool. The only thing we didn't talk about was layers and the stacking order. So real quick, I'll go in here and just want to make sure that we have that right. All right, so we're going to go to Window and open up our Layers panel. And depending on, there's a few elements in the layers panel that you'll need to be aware of. This toggles the visibility, this little eyeball icon. If you click it, it will hide, okay? If you also on your layers, let me go in here so you can see it. I can add layers by clicking on this add new layer icon, and you can title it. But depending on which layer is on the top or bottom, you can move them around. So if you want layer 4 to be on top, you can move layer 4. Just click and drag to kind of, if you've worked with Photoshop, this is a very similar concept. You can just move or rearrange your layers to fit the order that you want them in. If you don't want to, so say you've placed a template, you want to see the template, but you don't want it to move. You lock the template or lock this layer, and you can click and drag all you want around it, and it won't budge. This is very helpful when you're trying to trace, so that you can unlock that layer and allow it to, if I unlock it, it will move every time I click on it. So what I want to do is keep it locked so that it doesn't move with my other elements. So that's also very helpful. But I think that was all we needed to touch on layers. But good luck with this assignment. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for coming.